Long ball number one here on Morning Kick Round, starting the show. I'm Robert. He's Jason. History was made on a Tuesday night. That's right. The Chicago Fire dusted off their playoff appearance look last night by winning on the road in Miami, 5-3, ending their drought of postseason appearances since 2017 when Bastian Schweinsteiger was on the team. A team that hasn't won a playoff game since 2009. So, like you said in the comments, Jeffrey, keep it quiet so we don't make the hangover worse for Fire fans. But I bet they would appreciate some celebration for a triumph, not only against a leading team in the league, but also making the playoffs, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, big deal for Chicago. Greg Berhalter delivering something, to imagine them going from what they were, which was an irrelevant MLS team, to an MLS Cup contender in one season was probably too much. But making the playoffs in a league where 9 teams make it. And by the way, on the screen, you can see a photo of the last Chicago Fire team to make the MLS Cup playoffs. Bastian Schweinsteiger was in that team. That's how long ago that was. It is a big deal. Congratulations to the Fire. I will say that watching that game last night, as much as it was about the Fire sticking it to Inter Miami and booking their place in the playoffs, Inter Miami is not a serious soccer team, Rob. They're not a serious soccer team. I would highly encourage you and everybody listening to go and find John Mueller on Blue Sky, because John has been chronicling just how unserious Inter Miami are with some of their defending. And again, it was on full display last night in Fort Lauderdale. But the Inter Miami lack of defensive cohesion was the Fire's gain. They had a couple bangers, including Brian Gutierrez, who probably doesn't get enough attention, to be honest with you. I mean, you compare his numbers to like a Diego Luna or a Jack McGlynn, and he's right there with some young number 10s in Major League Soccer. I've been high on Gutierrez for a while. He's been a youth international. He might still have a level yet that he can hit, and he's helped the Fire to the playoffs.
Has consistency probably been his thing, like really stand out in some games and kind of being quiet in others? If you haven't seen that goal from last night, what a way to, stamp your playoff passport. If you go back and see those highlights, the 5th goal that the Fire scored last night, rocket shot, top corner, really something to behold. But yeah, Gutierrez, why isn't he in the conversation?
Well, I think we do this thing, right, where if you are not already playing higher level soccer, and for us that's Europe, right? If you're not in a top 5 league in Europe and getting minutes by the age of 22, which is what Brian Gutierrez is, we kind of write you off as a potential impact player for the national team, which means you then get relegated to just like, oh, he's just a nice MLS player. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, we need good MLS players who maybe aren't the level for the national team. But as I said, there's some argument that Brian Gutierrez is up there with some of the guys that get more attention. I mean, how much did the Colorado Rapids just spend on bringing Paxton Aronson back from Europe? I mean, and that's the kind of player they want to build around. And you could argue that a guy like Gutierrez is as valuable as Paxton Aronson. I mean, to his team. Certainly he's helped the Fire. He's a homegrown player. I think that's something that we should, be happy about. I don't know. Just I'm not trying to build up Gutierrez into a world beater or to a guy that should be playing in a top 5 league in Europe necessarily. But again, it's good that we have these American creative attacking players like a 22-year-old Brian Gutierrez who can help his team to the playoffs.
Think about all the history that has happened since 2017. The last time, and yeah, like I said, no wins since 2009. They won and out in 17 and won and out in 2012. The amount of history and how many rotations around the sun that we've all done since the Chicago Fire have made it into like the top 8 or 9 in half of the league. It's wild.
The last time that the Chicago Fire won a playoff match, your friend Jason was about, 8 months, 9 months into making podcasts. I hadn't even completed a year of making a podcast yet. And it was a terrible podcast in the beginning. So those were rough goes for me. So the last time the Fire won a playoff game, I was just starting the career that I now have and I was definitely not anywhere close to being professional. So that's wild to think about.
That picture you put on screen of Schweinsteiger's and the others, I was a Chicago soccer examiner in my soccer blogging days, and did one of my first pro player features on the man on the left, Nemanja Nikolic.
There he
A
is. Yeah.
Poland was amongst, I think he tied or broke the scoring record, and I think it was subsequently beaten by Joseph Martinez a year or two after. But the man on the far left that some outside of Chicago may not recognize was the goal scoring breaker that season. And then David Accam there was an exciting player, and
Yeah.
that team was able to raise some average players up a notch. Jeff Lorenowitz was on that team
Oh, was he really?
before
Wow.
he went
That's
to Atlanta, but that was an exciting team to cover. Kind of wild, but going back to your point of Miami being serious, what do they need? Do you think that the moving on of Busquets and maybe some rearranging of a defensive midfield would, amp up their serious meter?
I mean, that's next season, Rob. I mean,
Yeah, getting ahead of
they're
ourselves.
they're not doing that this year. They're going to ride with the guys that they got now, and that includes Sergio Busquets, who certainly did not seem to be of the level last night in Fort Lauderdale. I'm looking at that 2017 Chicago Fire team that you said you cover again. Bastian Schweinsteiger, obviously the biggest name on there. David Accam, Luis Solignac was on that team. Wow. Georgi
Matt
Mihalovic
White.
was a very young player on that team. He was a homegrown kid with the Fire before everything fell apart and he went to Montreal. Arturo Alvarez, that's for the older MLS fans out there. Arturo Alvarez had a lovely left foot. And Dax McCarty was on that team. I don't see Lorenowitz. I do see McCarty.
He might have moved on in 16, perhaps, but he
Maybe
was
that's right.
part of that mid 20-teen team that I did cover. But yeah, Dax McCarty, and then there's also Juninho, former MLS Cup winner with the LA Galaxy. Was
Yes, I
on that
remember that. Yeah, I
as
remember
well. So
that.
they that was an exciting team. Can Chicago Fire do better and actually win a game in
Well,
Philadelphia?
okay, so let's kind of just before we move on here, they finished third in the conference back in 2017, right? They didn't win any playoff games, but they finished third overall and in the conference. This team is not going to finish third overall or third in the conference, right? This is a very different level in terms of just sneaking into the playoffs. And as much as I'm glad that the Chicago Fire matter a little bit and have made the postseason, and they could end up hosting the play-in game or even climbing into the places proper where they don't have to play that play-in game because they have 2 games left. They're a point back of Orlando City. Orlando City's got a game in hand. Columbus is obviously lurking there. We know who's in the field. It's just a matter of seeding. As much as I want to say great for Chicago, and I'm certainly one of those people who have said every single time they miss the playoffs, it is a travesty that is not a better MLS town, right? That is a massive city. They have a big soccer population. There's no reason the Fire shouldn't matter more. And I guess give Joe Mansueto credit for trying and trying and trying again and finally getting something half right. But 9 teams is too many to make the playoffs, right? We are more than half of the conference makes the playoffs. That is not good. 60%. That does not mean you are a good team. It means you are barely above mediocre, if that. So I don't know that I want to shower praise upon the Fire, but it is notable that they have done this, and it is a stepping stone. And of course, they're building a brand new fancy stadium there at the 78 in Chicago. So if they can build that momentum, like this is the kind of thing that captures a little bit more attention, just a little bit in Chicago, and allows them to build towards 2028 when they open that building.
Yeah, going from the dregs to mediocre is a good step forward in the Greg Berhalter's first year. Currently on 15 wins, 11 losses, 6 draws, so just above average, enough to get them into those playoff spots. And I'm curious to hear from Fire fans if they thought that this success would come with the hiring of Greg Berhalter.